Hey guys, here's a quick recap of what we talked about at Snapshot tonight. We talked about the book of Proverbs. We continued in our wisdom literature series, and we're on the book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs is a book that was written mostly by King Solomon, also a couple of other people who worked alongside him and who were king after him. But a lot of it and most of it is attributed to him, and he started kind of the style of writing these Proverbs. And a lot of the book of Proverbs, when we think of it, are like these like short little like one sentence sayings. We're going to look at a few of those of what they have to say. But the first part of the book, it's actually a book that's broken up into kind of three main parts. The first part, chapters 1 through 9, is this wisdom that's kind of spoken towards the younger people, and it's really kind of like almost a letter written from a father to a son kind of thing. It's kind of like this father saying, son, like these are things you need to know to live a good life, and here's what wisdom is, and here's what it looks like to follow God, and he kind of paints this picture using the idea of wisdom being this virtuous woman that you want to know about, and like the kind of woman you want to marry, and that's like the kind of relationship you want to have with wisdom. So wisdom is also thought of this thing that kind of is an extension of who God is. It's part of God's personality, persona. It's part of who God is, this wisdom that helped him create the entire universe, and all the stuff that we learn is us understanding the wisdom, the rules, the things that God used to make the universe and how he did it. So in learning wisdom, we can get closer to understanding who God is and what his heart is and what he wants from us. But remember, we talked about how wisdom isn't just head knowledge. It is actually living out the stuff that you have in your head, the stuff that you know. If you don't use the things that you know, you're not living in a wise way. So it's not just taking information in, but it's letting that information change your heart and how you act. So anyway, that's what the first 9 chapters of it are kind of that father-son dialogue, kind of talking about what wisdom is, and talks about wisdom as a woman, and there's parts in the poem where wisdom is speaking itself. And then in chapters 10 through 24 are all of those little like short sayings that are just amazing. They're super deep. Some of them seem really weird to us, but if you read into them and you understand what they're talking about, they're amazing. And then in chapters 25 through 31, it's kind of, some of the other kings are writing some of those, but they're kind of talking about what it means to be a king. So if you're in a spot of leadership, those are really good to read from chapters 25 through 31. But we're kind of going to just do a quick overview of some of the main themes that are talked about in the book of Proverbs. Wisdom, remember, wisdom is someone who seeks God, who is humble enough to learn, and someone who applies what they've learned about God to all the areas of their life, right? It's not just learning stuff about God and doing the right stuff when you're at church and answering all the questions. It's about applying all of that to how you live your life. It says, a fool is stubborn, and a wise person is humble and willing to learn. All right, so we got a Bible verse here from Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. And it says, the fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Here it's saying that if you want to have true knowledge, you have to fear God. And that's a hard, weird thing for us to understand, right? What are we talking about? Are we like, hide in your bed because you think there's a boogeyman under your covers kind of fear? Or are we talking about something different? It's definitely something different, right? Like it's talking about having a good, healthy respect for who God is. And that's the foundation of everything. Like it's saying you can have all this amazing head knowledge, but if you don't have the base of understanding that God created the entire universe, and that you can trust him, but you need to respect him and understand that he makes the rules, that he's made wisdom, he's made the earth, he's made us a certain way. If you don't understand that, the thing that you built your life on will crumble if it's any other foundation than understanding and trusting in God, right? So that's what this verse is saying, is respect God, understand that he created everything, and work off of that, right? If you build on top of anything else, it's not going to be worth it. So really quick, we talked about relationships and how in relationships we must show consistent love and dedication and have high standards for other people, that we shouldn't just be able to write people off. Here's a couple of Proverbs. Proverbs 11:17 says, "Your own soul is nourished when you are kind, and it is destroyed when you are cruel." Right? If you keep being mean to people, it builds up, but your soul is actually nourished when you're kind to other people. Proverbs 18:24 says, "There are friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother." We've all had people who say they're friends and have our back, but they're not really. This is saying you need to be like even better than a brother. When you say you're a friend to someone, like, you need to stick by them and walk through the hardest times with them, even if they make terrible mistakes. Like, walk with them and try and help them get back up. Right. The next thing that Proverbs talks about is speech. Right. That our speech is to be honest, but also we're not just supposed to spout out anything that like just comes into our head. Right. Our speech shows our real attitude, and you can tell if someone's wise or not by listening to the way they talk. In Proverbs 15:1, it says, "Gentle words cause life and health, but griping brings discouragement." Right? Like, we've all been around people who kind of like gripe and complain about stuff, and it just weighs you down after a while, and it kind of sucks the joy and the energy and the life out of you. But gentle words cause life and health, right? And Proverbs 15 again, 28 says, "The heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking. The mouth of the wicked overflows with evil words." Like, there's so much junk in there that it's just coming out. And some versions it actually talks about it's kind of like people are puking out all of this bad like language and this bad thoughts. But it says, "Heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking." So you don't just jump out and say stuff, but you actually think and weigh what you're going to say. The next area that it talks about is work, right? That we all should work purposefully and diligently and do it all for God's glory. So in Proverbs 21, verse 25 through 26, it says, "The lazy man longs for many things, but his hands refuse to work. He is greedy to get, while the godly love to give." Right? You can want stuff, but if you're not willing to work for it, you're not going to get it, right? Like, it's not just going to fall in your lap. And then Proverbs 12:9 says this, "It is better to get your hands dirty and eat than to be too proud to work and starve." Right? It's saying working hard is a good thing. It's a wise thing to do. It'll help you get what you want and get what you need. And the last thing that we're going to look at, we looked at, was success. The Bible's definition of success is very different than the world's definition of success, right? The world says if you have the most stuff, if you have the biggest house, if you have the most money, then that's what will make you happy. And God says, no, that's not what it is. And wisdom says it too in this book. In Proverbs 19:1, it says, "Better to be poor and honest than rich and dishonest." Right? People will like you more, even if you're poor, if you're actually honest with them, right? Like, you have a better relationship with people. In Proverbs 11:18, it says, "Evil people get rich for the moment, but the reward of the godly will last forever," right? Knowing that this here is not all there is, that there is more. There's eternity where we get to choose to be with God or not with Him. And if we live for Him, that reward lasts way longer than anything we attain down here. And Proverbs 11:7 kind of goes along with that too. It says, "When an evil man dies, his hopes all perish, for they are based upon this earthly life." Right? The book of Proverbs is great because it gives you some literal things that you can actually do to live a smart, wise life. But the biggest thing it does is it puts us in our place, right? It puts everything in context, and it shows us stuff kind of from God's perspective, like that right there. Like, our hopes, if everything is in our hopes of doing well about down here, then it's all pretty fleeting and short. But if we understand that there's an eternity where we get to spend with God, that we have this forever with Him, that's an amazing thing. So it helps us kind of put life in perspective. So make sure you check out Proverbs, read it every once in a while. Even if you're ADD, I mean, they're like one sentence things. You can read a few of them, and you can get a lot out of them if you kind of just think through them. So check them out. Keep getting wise. We love you guys. Have an awesome week.